The night my wife asked me for a second baby, I was already holding the envelope that proved the first one was never mine. She didn't know that. She sat across the kitchen table, glowing, her hands wrapped around a warm mug, and told me she thought our daughter needed a little brother. I smiled the way she used to smile in our first year, before the silence moved into our house like a third person. And I smiled back because I had learned, over the last 6 weeks, how to wear a calm face over a burning chest. "I think it's time," she said softly. "Emma's almost 4. I'd be such a good big sister." "She would," I answered. My voice didn't shake. It never does anymore. We'd been married for 7 years. 7 years that began with cheap wine on the floor of an empty apartment and dreams we whispered like secrets. And where along the way those dreams turned into separate schedules, late-night work calls, and a distance I kept blaming on stress. I told myself every couple goes through this. I told myself I was imagining the way she guarded her phone now, the way she showered the moment she walked through the door, the way her laughter had a new sound in it. Brighter, but not for me. The first crack didn't come as a betrayal. It came as a birthday card. Emma had drawn a picture at daycare, a family the way children draw them, all round heads and stick arms. There was Mommy. There was Emma. And there was a tall man with brown hair holding her hand. I have black hair. I remember standing in the hallway holding that little piece of paper, laughing at myself for the cold feeling crawling up my spine. "Let's draw strange things," I told myself. "It means nothing." But instinct rarely lies. And mine had been whispering for months. Oh, I started paying attention the way a man pays attention when he already knows the answer, but isn't ready to say it out loud. I noticed the name Daniel appear and vanish from her phone screen. I noticed she took certain calls in the garage. I noticed that every time Emma had a doctor's appointment, my wife suddenly insisted on taking her alone. 3 weeks ago, while Emma napped and my wife was at yoga, I sat on the edge of my daughter's bed and looked at her sleeping face for a long time. I had my wife's nose. She had a laugh that melted me, and she had brown hair and warm brown eyes. That I had spent 4 years telling myself came from some distant relative. That afternoon, I gently brushed a few strands of her hair into a small plastic bag. I did the same with my own, and I mailed them to a lab with a request for the fastest result money could buy. For 13 days I lived 2 lives. In one, I was a husband planning a second child, nodding along as my wife scrolled through nursery colors. In the other, I was a man waiting for an envelope that would either give me back my life or end it. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. I opened it in my car, in the parking lot outside my office with the engine off and the world muffled behind the glass. And my eyes moved past the medical language and found the only line that mattered. Probability of paternity, 0%. I didn't cry. I didn't punch the steering wheel. I just sat there while everything I believed about my life quietly rearranged itself into something unrecognizable. Emma. The little girl who called me daddy, who fell asleep on my chest, who I would have died for without a second thought, was not my blood, and my wife had let me love her for 4 years, knowing that was the cruelest part, not the affair. The years of watching me tuck in a child, pay for her preschool, save for a future, all while she carried a secret behind that rehearsed smile. I could have gone home and screamed. I could have thrown the paper in her face and let the house burn down around us. Instead, I did something that scared me a little. I stayed calm. Too calm. They deserve your precision. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a man she didn't recognize but couldn't quite name the change in. I was attentive, agreeable. I told her yes to the second baby. I let her plan. And while she planned a future built on my forgiveness of a crime she didn't even know I'd uncovered, I quietly built something of my own. I visited a lawyer during my lunch breaks. I opened a separate account and moved my half of our savings into it, legally, cleanly, before anything could be frozen or fought over. I gathered everything. The call logs, the location history she never knew synced to our shared account, the hotel receipts I'd found and photographed, and one more DNA report I'd ordered, this time comparing Emma's sample to a hair I'd lifted from a jacket Daniel had left in our coat closet the one time he'd been careless. That result told me everything. The man in Emma's drawing had a name and it wasn't mine. And through all of it, I kept a promise to myself. Blood doesn't lie. People do. The night I ended it, I didn't raise my voice. Came home glowing again, humming, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door. "Home early," she said, surprised to find me sitting in the dark living room. "I wanted to talk about the baby," I said. Her whole face lit up. She sat beside me, took my hand, and started talking about names. I let her finish, and I reached under the coffee table and placed a single sheet of paper on the cushion between us. She looked down. I watched the exact moment her world stopped, the way her breath caught, the way her fingers went cold in mine. "What is this?" she whispered. Oh, she already knew. "It's the reason we won't be having a second baby," I said quietly. "Because we never had a first one. Not together." The tears came fast, the apologies faster. It had only happened a few times. Daniel meant nothing. She'd been lonely, distant, afraid. She still loved me. She'd do anything. And beneath it all, the sentence she thought would save her. "But Emma loves you. They're her father in every way that matters." And that was the sentence that nearly broke me. Because it was true, and because she had used the love of a child as a shield for 4 years. I stood up. I set a second folder on the table. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed, already dated, prepared the week before. I had them a printed custody consultation, because I had already spoken to a lawyer about the one thing she never expected me to fight for. "I'm not going to punish Emma for what you did," I told her. "She didn't lie to me. You did. Whatever happens next, that little girl will always know that one person in this world loved her without conditions. But you and I are done. A night." She slid to the floor, the papers trembling in her hands, begging me to think of the family we'd built. But the foundation she kept talking about had never existed. It had been a stage, and I had been the only one who didn't know he was acting in someone else's play. I filed the next morning. I changed the locks that afternoon. And when Daniel finally learned that the woman he'd been meeting in hotels was suddenly, permanently, all his, I heard he didn't stay long. He didn't win her. He inherited the wreckage. Months later, she called. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. He told me Daniel had left, that she was alone, that Emma asked about me every night. That last part I believed, and it cut deeper than anything else. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said gently. "You made a choice. 4 years of choices." There was a long silence. Then, in the fragile voice of someone who finally understood what she traded away, she asked, "Is there really nothing left for me?" I looked out the window at the quiet street, at the life I was slowly rebuilding, one honest morning at a time. "And not here," I said. "But tell Emma," her uncle called. "Tell her I still keep her drawing on my fridge. Tell her the door is open for her, always for her, just never again for you." I hung up before she could answer. People think revenge is loud. They picture shouting matches and shattered plates. But the truest revenge is quiet. It's a signed paper on a coffee table. It's a calm voice where she expected screaming. It's walking away with your dignity while she's left holding the truth she spent years hiding. Hey, told me once that blood was thicker than anything. She was right. Blood doesn't lie. People do. That night my